Good evening, all. It's that time again, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific on Monday, June 18th, 2018. It is the No Name Cinema Society, and it's our Sound Off, our freeform segment, the segment that very few of you understand, but yet you tune in anyway. And quite frankly, we barely understand it. Ladies and gentlemen, hi, my name is Jonathan Betzler. I'm one of your hosts here this evening. I am back in New York after I went back to LA last week. I'm back in New York, and I'm going to be in New York for the foreseeable future, probably throughout July, not back in LA till August, but I'm representing with the Angels hat tonight. And so I'm very excited about that. Not only that, but I'm also excited about the Washington Capitals, who won the Stanley Cup this year. Congratulations to my Washington Capitals, which means I will probably shave the beard sometime in the near future, or maybe I'll just keep it on in celebration. Congratulations all around there. And cheers to you all out in the audience right now. I've got Two Hearted Ale again. That's what I had in New York. I'm excited to drink that. I'm the only one drinking tonight, and you'll see why in a second, because I'm going to introduce my co-host. First, he drinks before he gets on the air. Drunk Davey is not going to drink in front of you, but he is drunk.
How's it going?
Good. Are you? The Sound Off is your baby. Are you excited?
Pumped.
He doesn't mean that because he's really he's going to have a slow night tonight. It's really not about Davey at all tonight. And we've got so much to accomplish that I feel like it won't be. I said to myself, the next Sound Off, I'm going to try and be a little more freeformy for Davey, but I don't know if tonight's the night.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Yeah, we got too much to do. Our other co-host for this evening is just did the review of Adrift with us about 10 days ago. Jim Carroll's back, father of three, Jeopardy champion.
That pretty much sums it up.
That's you in a nutshell. So here's our schedule. We're closing out our 48 series of episodes. Starting on Thursday, June 7th with Adrift, starring Shailene Woodley and Sam Claflin. And then on Monday, June 11th, we did Afternoon Delight, directed by Jill Soloway and starring Katherine Hahn and Juno Temple. On Thursday, June 14th, we did our classic feature discussion of Terry Gilliam's Brazil from 1985. And on June 18th, which is tonight, we do our Sound Off. And there you see some of the things that are coming up tonight. What's not on there is Davey's least favorite segment. Davey, what's coming up now on a Sound Off?
What?
This day in history. This day in history.
Oh, this day in history. That's right. I do. Yeah, I hate that. Anyway, continue.
You might like one or two of the things on tonight. I did this for you. This first one, actually, a lot of them are Davey friendly. On this day in history, in 1628, Davey, Philadelphia is founded by William Penn. On this day, in 1628, happy birthday, Philadelphia, a city that's close to both my and Davey's heart. I was born there. On this day in 1969, another thing that Davey might like, The Wild Bunch is released. We were supposed to do it on a show this year in 2018, but I don't know if we'll make it. The schedule's getting a little tight. 2019 will be its 50th anniversary, so maybe we'll do it next year. On this day, June 18th, in 1977, was the day that Reggie Jackson and Billy Martin got into their famous fight in the Yankees dugout. Do you remember that, Davey?
I mean, I didn't see it unfold live, but I know of it.
Yeah, fist fight in the dugout. Jim, do you know about that? Reggie Jackson and his manager getting into a fight in the dugout?
I mean, Billy Martin fought pretty much everybody, if I remember correctly.
Well, this was a physical altercation. It's sort of famous. It featured heavily in the movie The Bronx is Burning, which was an ESPN miniseries with John Turturro playing Billy Martin and Daniel Sunyata playing Reggie Jackson. It's actually pretty good, Jim.
It is. It is pretty good.
And birthdays today, the late Roger Ebert would have turned 76 today. And that's notable because he was born in our year of 1942, the year we studied heavily last year. I'm in the middle of I don't know if it's biography per se. I guess it is. It's sort of like things that happen in his life and notes. It's not a traditional biography, but it is. This particular book, Life Itself, was made into a documentary by Steve James, who also directed the documentary The Interrupters, which we reviewed in episode 33.2. Davey, see how I tied it back?
Well done. Is that the reason why you are reading the book, so that you could weave that amazing segue?
Yep. I only got the book. Now, the book is a gift. It's actually, I'm not enjoying the book at all, but that's beside the point. Now, Jim, our big announcement is coming up next. But before we did that, when we went to see Adrift a couple of weeks ago, you told me something that I thought you might want to share with the audience and Jim, because when we did our episode 13.3, we did a show on a film called All Quiet in the Western Front. Dave, you remember that?
I do.
We did that because I had done a screening at Jim's house with Jim's kids, and Jim had invited some neighbor kids over. We had some adults there. We had some kids there. It was the first time I had screened a film, particularly a film that old, to minors. And we were going to have a minor on the show, but Davey had some legal concerns about bringing Jim's daughter on the show.
I do want to stress, it wasn't just you, me, and a bunch of kids, because that makes it sound really creepy. There was...
I said there were some adults and there were some kids.
They were specifically the parents of the children.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I just don't want to see you get locked up, man.
No, I appreciate that. Somebody's looking out for me. But, what was one of the things that you said to me about the kids' reaction to the screening, Jim?
Oh, I thought it was interesting because the kids, I think, liked it more than the parents.
The exception being Jim and I. Jim and I both liked the film very much, and you've seen my review of it in episode 13.3. But I think the thing you said to me that struck me the most is you said they went to school and were talking about it more the next day.
Yes, yeah.
That's like the goal of the show to some degree. I mean, maybe not for Davey. Davey wants money, but for me, if we can get a younger generation to embrace a movie as from 1930 of all year, and that's not the easiest movie. I mean, I love it, but it's a challenging movie, and we got them to embrace it and interested and research things. That was really meant a lot to me, Jim, that you said that, and I wanted Davey to hear it.
My children and I talked about it because they were talking about that the shot from the schoolhouse down the street at the very start of the film, sort of the opening up of it, what an impact that has on sort of the setting and establishing the whole mood of the film, Germany at the time.
And Jim, you said at least your eldest daughter, even watched our show on it.
Yeah, Maddie and I sat down and watched it.
So Davey, how do you respond to this? We're affecting young minds.
It's heartening to know that the show could spark a conversation and maybe get somebody interested in film. Honestly, that and a nickel will get you a stick of gum.
Brings it back to money all the time. I thought it was kind of a cool thing.
It definitely is.
Thanks, Jim, for mentioning it. So now we have a societal announcement. A big announcement about the future of the show, the course of the show. We did this sort of thing last year, also in the same episode that we did recastings. And it's in that episode, we actually introduced Jim to you all in episode 42.4. When we wrapped up our 1942 in review, I put forth to you, the audience, the following slide. It was a fan poll of what we should do for this upcoming year. Because in 2015, we went back 25 years and looked at 1990. In 2016, we looked 50 years and did 1966. And of course, last year in 2017, we went back 75 years and looked at 1942. I asked you guys if you wanted us to go back 25 years again, or if you wanted us to do 30 years, or if you wanted us to do 50 years again, or if you wanted us to do 60 years. These were the options, and we heard back from quite a bit of you, and we appreciate your feedback. So we can now reveal the results. I actually did it in a vlog already, but those of you that don't watch the vlogs, because so few of you do not know the results. And here's what I had to say in the vlog. The vote came back, the results, and it was a resounding answer. Devin and Alex are going to be on the big show in next February. And what year are you going to be looking at?
We're going to be looking at my freshman year of high school.
You mean 2001?
Many people guess 2001, 2005, 2007. But in fact, the year that we're going to be looking at is 1988.
That's right, 1988, 30 years ago from this year is going to be so in next February we're going to be doing a 1988 review, looking back at all the films from 1988, and we're going to start it right here, right now at TCM Fest with this film. Ta-da! Bull Durham, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a big favorite of mine, but it's not just a big favorite of mine, it was also very well received review-wise when it first came out.
Devin, you know I don't believe in reviews.
What do you believe in?
I believe in the soul, Devin. I believe in the small of a woman's back, the hanging curve, good scotch, high fiber. I believe the novels of Susan Sontag are self-indulgent, overrated crap. I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I believe that there should be a constitutional amendment outlawing AstroTurf and the designated hitter. I believe in the sweet spot, softcore pornography. Presents should be open Christmas morning instead of Christmas Eve. And I believe in long, slow, deep, soft, wet kisses that last for 3 days. There it is, guys. How did you like that speech?
Did you write that yourself?
I did not write that myself. That is a speech from Bull Durham, which is the movie we were in line to see in one of our 1988 films. So yes, 1988 is the year we're going to be reviewing. 30 years ago, it was an overwhelming victory for 1988. So you guys, it seems like it's a year you guys really want to participate in. A lot of interesting movies, including, and here's a bombshell that I haven't even told anybody on the show yet, is one of my top 5 movies of all time is from 1988. And you'll find that out when the show drops in February. But throughout the year, you'll be seeing us post about all the movies we're going to be watching from 1988. Dave, are you jealous you're not going to be doing it with us?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. It's a big task to watch all these movies from a different year. You did it last year for 1942.
It is. I'll be honest. I was kind of hoping that 88 would win. So.
Oh, okay. There you go. And the folks that will be on the show with me that are tasked with what Jim did last year and watching all these movies from 1988 are people that you already know that we've introduced in the show. Devin Michaels is going to be doing with us. He's done several shows, How to Survive a Plague with us, Bonnie and Clyde. He did our top 10 this year. He was in our top 10 of 2017. He is going to be one of the people reviewing movies from 1988 with us. And Alex Evans, our Below the Liner, is going to be with us as well, reviewing movies from 1988. And the fun part of that is they all live within blocks of me. So it's very possible when I get back to LA in August, September, October, they'll just be coming over and we'll be doing like 88 marathons. I can also announce our lineups for the other finale episodes. Davey will be doing both the top 10 this year and the Oscar preview. Correct, Davey?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Let's pay attention, Davey. You don't have much to say in this sound off, so you know when I call on you can just at least be ready and aware. He's bumbling. He's got a girl that he's talking to on Bumble right now.
No, believe it or not, this is actually work.
Okay. So Davey will be with us, supposedly. The top 10s is like favorite thing, and the Oscar preview. So he will be back for that at least, both of which will air in February. Exact dates TBD. So along with Davey and I for the top 10, James Monahan will be back, and he's going to do the top 10. So me, Davey, and James will do the top 10. Me, Alex, and Devin will do the 1988 in review. And that leaves the Oscar preview. So Davey and I will do the Oscar preview. And while you're here, Jim, we thought we'd ask you live, invite you to join us. Would you like to be on our Oscar preview with us next year?
Of course I would.
You think you can watch enough movies from 2018 to opine on the Oscars?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we're all planning on breaking in, adrift, splitting, and sweeping. Just those two.
Still thinking about Rampage, which Davey loved earlier this year.
Pretty much. We don't have to watch anything else.
Yeah, those are going to be the 3. So Jim, you're going to need a movie pass to see all these movies, probably.
I will. I'll see if I can finally get it done.
I noticed how your voice changed to a whisper as you as the discussion of movie pass came up.
It's all me. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, so Jim, there you have it. Me, Davey, and Jim, we're going to be on the Oscar preview. So the lineups are set, and it's going to be late February. Then we're gonna, the Oscar week. It's always Oscar week, so it'll be the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday leading up to Oscar week, in which we're going to do that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, has been our societal announcement. Stay tuned on Twitter and Facebook, and to get more info about these 1988 films or whatever, subscribe to the channel so you can learn more about progress towards our big finale episodes, which is these last set of finale episodes, the top 10 of 2017, the Oscar preview, and especially the 1942 in review have been doing terrifically on YouTube. I listened again to the 1942 in review today, and Jim, it's probably our finest hour as a show. Like, I'm really proud of what we did for that show.
Hey, you're welcome. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. So hopefully we can do even better with the 1988 in review. I've watched like a bunch of movies already from 1988 that I didn't report because we were because we didn't announce it yet. But films like The Presidio, I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Presidio. Two Moon Junction I watched. Cocoon, The Return I watched. Frantic. I've already dipped into the 1988 waters a little bit. It's been an interesting project so far, and I look forward to doing a lot more. So now I'm going to move on, guys. You guys ready? Anything more on the announcement?
I am ready.
You're super ready. I know you're excited. Davey could care less. But are you done with the announcement, Davey? You feel good?
No, we can keep going. We can keep talking about the announcement if you want.
Do you have more to say? I don't have more to say.
No, I'm good. I'm talked out.
Yeah. doesn't take much. So that leads us to this very popular segment that we have. We do once a year, recastings, in which we recast some of the films that we wanted to remake from that year that we looked at. And last year we looked at films from 1942, and on the show there was a handful of films that we said that we wanted to remake. Those are the films that we're going to recast here with modern day actors. And you guys have always gotten a kick out of this segment. By you guys, I mean the audience. And so we have 4 different movies, 2 of which I'm going to do solo, I think. Yes, that's correct. 2 of which Jim has prepared some people for, right, Jim?
Yes, I have.
The first one was a Best Picture nominee and a Best Director nominee, a film called King's Row, directed by Sam Wood. And Jim missed that one. That's one of the ones that slipped through the cracks for Jim.
Yep.
George was the one that wanted to remake it. And I agreed with him in the sense that this movie had a lot of potential. Like, it's sort of got a Peyton Place-ish kind of melodrama feel. It felt like it even could be like a television thing. Sam Wood really hammered home in the melodrama when there was really a lot of actual human drama to mine that didn't need to be so heightened. King's Row is a good movie that under a better director could have been a great movie. And I'd love to modernize it too. So we're going to start with the role of Paris, played in the movie by Robert Cummings. That's Parris. And Robert Cummings was in a lot of movies in 1942, including Saboteur. King's Row takes place like when they're kids, and then they're sort of teenagers, and then they become sort of adults. So Robert Cummings played the character as a teenager and adult. He's sort of like the underprivileged kid that grows up to be a doctor, very, very straight-laced and well-meaning, and sort of like the protagonist, but he sort of disappears for half the movie or goes abroad or something. Anyway, so for this role, I decided, I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt would be a good fit to play Paris, even maybe give him a little more edge that Robert Cummings did not have the ability to give him. Not that the character needs too much edge, like you don't want to go over the top, you still want him to have that sort of moral compass, but you don't want him to be as two-dimensional as the way Robert Cummings played it. So I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt is great there. And for Drake, the character of Drake is played in the movie by Ronald Reagan. And what many people feel is the greatest performance of his career, and I have no reason to disagree with that. He's very good. He never got an Oscar nomination, and many people feel like he should have for this. He's Paris's best friend, and he's the popular kid, but he's also the wild kid, the kid that your parents don't want you to bring home in this very small town where everybody knows everybody else. He's well-meaning. He's not as smart as Paris, but he's got the street smarts. He loves the ladies, still doesn't get the respect of the other townspeople. Oh, but Drake is independently wealthy, or his family is. They left him a lot of money, so he winds up bankrolling Paris to go to doctor school and helping Paris out a lot financially. You know, he goes through a lot, and he's got a chip on his shoulder because the even though he's got money, it's sort of inherited money, and people don't like, you know, the rumors about him around town and stuff like that. So he's got a chip on his shoulder. So I cast Miles Teller in the role, who's one of our very popular actors on the show. We've talked about him a lot on the show. We've reviewed 5 different movies with him on it, including Rabbit Hole, The Fantastic Four, Allegiant Divergent, Spectacular Now. So we talked about Miles Teller quite a bit. He and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think, would be like very cool best friends, but opposite ends of the spectrum kind of thing. I think they'd be great together. I know you guys haven't seen the movie, but how do you guys feel about that pairing at least?
That's exciting, and that would be an interesting team.
The minute that you said both Ronald Reagan and chip on his shoulder, I was like, oh, Miles Teller. Yeah, absolutely. Chip on his shoulder. That's the guy that you need to carry that. That's
Well, cool. All right, so we're on the same page here. Then there's Randy. She's the girl from the other side of the tracks that they play with as kids, but when they grow up, they sort of grow apart. Drake is sort of surprised to learn that she turned out to be beautiful Ann Sheridan, but she's still like the poor girl from the other side of the tracks. Drake and Randy develop a romantic relationship. And I was looking for a good young actress here to play this, and she's a little younger, but not that much younger, and she's really coming of age. So I think Elle Fanning would be pretty terrific as this girl on the other side of the tracks here. We actually talked about Ann Sheridan's performance in King's Row on the show as being Oscar-worthy. Both George and I felt that. It's a juicy role. I think she and Miles Teller would have pretty good chemistry. I'm hoping that they would. These are really good, juicy parts. I'm really just trying to round them out with really terrific actors. Which brings us to Cassandra, which is the girl that Paris is in love with. Cassandra is a beautiful girl, but she has some family issues. Like, her father is like the most respected doctor in town, a genius, and Paris actually studies under him while still in high school or college or something. They work together closely to learn about doctoring, you know, not knowing that Paris is falling in love with his daughter. And he sort of keeps his daughter locked up, like not literally, but he has a lot of restrictions on her, and especially in terms of dating and going out, because mental illness runs in the family. And Cassandra does wind up, going crazy a little bit, which is why, Davey, Juno Temple's the perfect person for this role.
That logic works. That's
right? And I'm keeping it in the show family here. These are actors that we talk about all the time in the show. Yeah, she seems perfect. And I love her with Joseph Gordon-Levitt too, you know, especially him trying to woo her and she being all crazy and stuff. I think that's, you know, that dynamic's going to be really awesome. Finally, Alexander Tower, who's played in the film by the great Claude Rains, who many of you know from Casablanca as Captain Renaud. And he plays Cassandra's father, the respected doctor I was just talking about. He's brilliant, but trying to manage this family with mental illness weighs heavily on him, and he has a lot of issues in the early part of the film. And you can see the sort of melodrama brewing as I'm explaining these roles here, guys. I don't know if it's selling the film or not. It's actually kind of interesting. I had Jeff Daniels playing this part as a sort of holier-than-thou, super smart guy with some emotional issues. Jim, I don't know how you feel, but if my description is enough to give you an opinion on that.
I like Jeff Daniels. I think of Claude Rains and I think of Jeff Daniels, trying to put them together in the same.
Claude Rains has this sort of continental austerity about him that Jeff Daniels doesn't necessarily have in his persona, but I mean, like, you always get the sense Jeff Daniels is really smart. Alexander Towers is a character that he's smart and he knows he's smarter than everybody else in the town. He's sort of above everybody else in town, except he sees a little hope in Paris. He stays away from everybody in the town except his patients, and he keeps his daughter and his wife away from everybody else in town. And so, you know, and he's very, like, he comes off as strict and sort of scary, except as Paris starts to study with him. So I don't know if Claude Rains' continental, authority is what is as necessary as some of like the strictness that he carries with him.
I agree with you that Jeff Daniels is smart, and I think you proved your point in your selection.
I haven't seen the movie, but I'm sure you're wrong.
No good. And Jim, you were thinking about watching this movie, but you just didn't get to it.
Yeah, no, in fact, I rented it to watch over this weekend, and I ended up having to do about 7 hours of work on Sunday from home.
Is the rental still valid, or did it expire?
It's probably good until tomorrow, so I'll try and get it in.
Just for your own edification. So, Davey, that's King's Road. Did I sell the movie for you at all?
Yeah, I mean, you make all these movies sound good. You tricked me into watching all kinds of stuff.
Every once in a while, you like Johnny Belinda, I think you said.
No, I would. I'm sure I would have a great time watching all these movies. If I ever get to the point where we could make money with this show and I could not have to go to work, I would watch them all, man.
Always back to money with Davey Joe. Okay, so now we're gonna get Jim involved a little bit on this next one, and this next movie is actually a series of movies, and it's the Falcon series, and I'll explain this to you guys. It's a mystery series starring George Sanders, who would win an Oscar for a movie called All About Eve in 1950, and later Tom Conway as the Falcon's brother. He would take over the series. And by the way, George Sanders and Tom Conway are brothers in real life. The Falcon is a super sophisticated womanizer who lives in 1940s New York City, who solves upper-class crimes with suave panache. And I saw 4 of these films. I saw The Gay Falcon, A Date with the Falcon Takes Over, and The Falcon's Brother. They're super fun. I really enjoyed them, best of which was from 1942, The Falcon Takes Over, which took the story from Raymond Chandler's Farewell, My Lovely. It's a series of films. They're all like 50 minutes to an hour each, so they're quick watches. And I feel like, I don't know if it's a movie series or a TV series, but I would love to redo it and update it. And after I talked about it on one of the last shows, Jim actually went out and watched it.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to jump in right here. It's a TV show.
Okay.
I 100% think that it's a series.
I was throwing to you to see if you enjoyed it.
Oh, I loved them. I really did. They're just a lot of fun.
That's how I felt. Like, I was surprised. I'd never heard about them prior to the 1942 in Review thing, and they were just delightful and smart, silly at points, but I mean, like, really fun. And George Sanders is so good.
Yep.
So let's start there. We're going to recast 3 roles from the Falcon series. It's the Falcon himself, as played by George Sanders in the series to begin with, and he has a sort of assistant that who's about the same age but not as suave or good looking, and he sort of like a New York accent, or ex-cop in the series, called Goldie, is his sort of right-hand man. And then there's always some girl, almost like Bond. It's a different girl almost every time. And so Basically, we're casting Falcon, Goldie, and Girl, just a random girl character. Jim, you've been hinting at this ever since the Breaking In vlog. You feel like you've got the answer for the Falcon, for the modern day Falcon. Who do you got?
I do, and I'm going like way left field for this. Are you familiar?
Watch us have the same person, but go ahead.
Okay, are you familiar with the show called The Good Place?
I know The Good Place very well. I enjoy it very much.
For the Falcon, I chose Jamila Jamil, who plays Tahani Al Jamil on The Good Place.
That is left field.
That is left field. The thing that stuck out about the Falcon for me was sort of I love that he was so hands off. He seemed to like ride above the action.
Okay, I think she could be interesting. Do you know The Good Place, Davey?
No, I don't. I don't know it.
It's on NBC. It's actually, I think one of the best comedies on television right now. I love it.
Oh, okay, neat.
I went a little more traditional. I did not switch genders. Not for this one, actually. Strangely enough, I switched genders later on. For this one, I went sort of more traditional, and I looked for a good actor that I do think could handle the suaveness. I went with Fassbender. I went with Michael Fassbender as the Falcon. And I think he'd be really awesome.
Yes, I totally buy that. See, I couldn't get out of the television because the movies are 1 hour serials.
Yeah, but they could be 2 hour long mysteries or 90-minute long mysteries.
And Michael Fassbender, it would be a cakewalk for him.
Who do you have as Goldie?
For Goldie, I went Kristen Schaal.
Is she still an ex-cop?
I sort of took her as more, the way that Goldie plays down class.
Goldie's definitely down class. Full disclosure, Jim did a show with Kristen Schaal back in the 2000s, which I saw on the Fringe Festival years and years ago.
2005, I think that was.
Place in Brooklyn in the 50s or something, didn't there, or something?
Yeah, it was called Searching for Stanley Hammer.
You have personal connection with Kristen Schaal. Is she easy to work with?
She is. She's a lovely person. And you know who else was in that show was Liz Merriweather, who did The New Girl.
Yep.
And Kim Rosenstock wrote it, and Kim Rosenstock went on to be a writer for The New Girl. She's had stuff at Roundabout. It was actually a pretty awesome cast.
Davey looks so bored. Davey, we're dropping some names here.
I know. I'm actually looking up Kristen Schaal.
Well, you know Kristen Schaal. You've seen her on Comedy Central.
Oh, no, I do know.
I went a little older because Goldie's a little older in the series, and I focused on the ex-cop aspect of it, and the class thing too. I was thinking I was just really like good actors. I like actors that I love too. So I mean, like I take actors that I love first, and then see where I can put them. And so this is an actor that I listed in our 2015 Oscar preview as should have been nominated. And he was nominated for an Oscar this year for Best Supporting Actor, and I thought he should have been in 2015 for Bone Tomahawk. I went with Richard Jenkins as Goldie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just okay? That's all you got?
Sorry.
I want more effusiveness.
Good choice.
Even Davey likes
it.
it without knowing Goldie.
Solid choice.
That was a good one.
And just imagine him and Fassbender like solving crimes in New York City. I'm just tickled by the thought of it.
Why don't you make a movie and put the two of them in it?
Yeah, you just give me the cash, man. I will be all over it. You give me some lawyer cash, I will do it.
You got it.
He's still donating to my fund for Hawaii 2, the sequel I want to make, or the remake of Hawaii.
Sequel is a better idea than remake. Sequel, all the way.
There actually is a sequel. It's called The Hawaiians from 1970, but that's beside the point.
Trilogy, dude. Trilogy.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sure there's enough material in the James Michener book for there to be a trilogy. Now, there's the girl, the love interest. I assume you went with a guy, or maybe not. Maybe we're LGBT in it. Who do you have as the love interest in the Falcon series?
I'll do two. However they want to go. You want to cast a woman? Cast Rashida Jones. You want to cast a guy? Go with John Krasinski.
You just like The Office, is what it sounds like. You're just focusing on television so much here.
Once I thought of Jamila Jamil for the Falcon, it sort of put me in TV land. That sort of grounded me into TV actors.
There's so much crossover now between TV and movies.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if there is such a thing anymore. But I went with an actual movie star person here. I went with the person that James actually in our Oscar preview this year had as his should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And she was in my number 2 movie of 2017. I went with Karen Gillan from Jumanji and Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers and such.
And Doctor Who.
I was going to get to Doctor Who, you nerd. And Doctor Who is probably the thing on a resume that fits in best with this concept of her being Girl Friday kind of person. Are you happy with that, aside from the Doctor Who correction?
Yes, I'm happy with that. You had to complete it.
Yeah, okay. I'm confused by your cast, I'll be honest with you. But I'm trying to picture it, but you have a vision that I'd like to see you put it to fruition. But my vision in my mind, my cast feels something I can see right now. I think I need some proof about how your cast is going to work.
I got the spirit of it.
Another movie that I wanted to remake, and actually what's fun about this one is I've actually started writing a script, an updated script for this one. It's a film called You Were Never Lovelier, obviously also from 1942, and starred Fred Astaire and Rita Hayworth. It takes place in Buenos Aires, and Fred Astaire is a dancer, of course. He wants to dance down there, but there's an issue with his contract. The person who owns the theater has a daughter who's Rita Hayworth, who's super hot, but she's very picky about the man she wants to be with. And apparently, she has an interest in the Fred Astaire character, or curiosity about him. So her father basically trades Fred Astaire the ability to dance in his theater in exchange for, will you pursue my daughter at least for like a week or so until she realizes you're a jerk and she'll get over you. That's sort of the plot. As I describe it, it's sort of wacky, but I actually think it was done very well. And of course, it was great singing and dancing, so it's Davies' kind of movie, especially with the amazing, gorgeous Rita Hayworth. But I actually think that concept would be really fun switched to modern times. So I actually started playing around with a modern day script, and I've been having a lot of fun with it so far. And one thing I did do is I switched the genders for this one as well. And I also, instead of making it a dancer, I made it a singer. So instead of a dancer, I've got a desperate singer who agrees to date a shy son of a rich man. And those are the three parts that I'm going to cast. And it's interesting. So for the singer character, I needed, not someone who's too young, but someone that was spunky and looks like they've lived a little bit, but also that they could sing their asses off. It's funny, Jim, that you talked about The Good Place, because I did go with Kristen Bell here to lead this movie for me. So The Good Place is on our minds. She's got a great voice and great comic ability. I think she's a really good actor all around. I mean, Good Place shows great comic ability, but she's also in House of Lies, in which she was outstanding as well in a more dramatic role.
Yeah, Kristen Bell's a great choice for anything.
Oh, okay. Great. So he agrees with that. And of course, he didn't see the movie. For the son character, the shy son of the rich man, who has trouble relating to other people, and that's why the rich man is sort of pushing, in this case, this girl to hang out with him, and get him out of his shell. I'm going with Paul Dano.
Okay.
Now that sounded like a reserved okay. Do you not like Paul Dano?
I love Paul Dano, but when I think of Paul Dano, he's very intense. It's a big contrast with Kristen Bell.
That's what I have in mind, though, too. Like, I think, especially in the beginning, before he comes out of his shell, that dichotomy works for what I'm going for. That seems to fit within my vision.
Has Paul Dano ever come out of his shell? I mean, I think of the lightest that I've seen him was with Zoe Kazan.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually in Ruby Sparks, he's the romantic lead. Like, he plays that.
Really creepy in Ruby Sparks.
Yeah.
We do remember the end of Ruby Sparks, how he breaks her. I don't know if that plays as really light and frothy.
In that movie, he proves his ability to do that. I mean, I understand that movie went in a certain direction, but I think he showed a lot of range in that movie and an ability to do different things. I don't mind a little creepy in the beginning of this movie, or I mean, like in Shy and Reserved, but yeah, I mean, I do think that once she brings him out, she makes him a little more comfortable in his own body. I think he can do that without a problem. Other things like Looper and Youth, like in the end of Little Miss Sunshine, I think he does a lot of those. Do you not think Paul Dano's a good actor?
I 100% love Paul Dano. I am not impugning his reputation. I think he's solid in everything that I've seen him in. For the setup that sounds so light and so comedic, I've never seen him in that role. Maybe he's awesome at that. Everything that I've seen him in always has like a sort of an undercurrent of really either emotional pain, or there's something messed up, or there's a weight to him that I don't know how it will play against Kristen Bell in this sort of comedy.
I also don't think you understand it. I don't think it's a comedy. Like, I think it has elements. I don't necessarily think it's straight out like laugh comedy. I don't write comedies.
Okay, fair.
I mean, like, I think it'll be a character piece, and I think it's a comic situation potentially, but I mean, I think it's going to be grounded in reality, and that's all I really know how to do.
Yeah, see, Kristen Bell took me into a whole.
But
Like, with Kristen Bell,
and I actually, when I mentioned Kristen Bell, I talked about how she has the ability to do drama. She can sing. Like, I mean, she has all-around skills. So, I mean, I actually envision this as more of, I mean, it'll be light. I like drama. Like, I don't think it'll be like King's Row kind of stuff. But I mean, I think it'll be, I mean, I think it'll be, grounded kind of, I think it'll be darker, not darker, but not as light as Ruby Sparks, for example.
Okay, I haven't seen the movie also, so I'm piloting the fog here.
I appreciate you arguing with me anyway. And for the dad, who's played in the movie by Adolphe Menjou, again, looking for a good actor of appropriate age. I mean, an actor I've always wanted to work with is the Irish actor Ciarán Hinds, who we reviewed in a movie called The Debt in episode 27.2. Do you remember Ciarán Hinds, Davey?
How could I forget?
Do you actually remember him or no? I can't tell.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. He should have been Oscar nominated in 2005 for Munich. He was a great supporting actor in Steven Spielberg's Munich.
And Road to Perdition?
He's in a ton of things over the years. Miami Vice is another one. Munich is the one that I definitely Oscar worthy for him. So that's You Were Never Lovelier. I think I'm just going to change the title to Lovelier, or we'll see how the script goes. Maybe it'll just be something different altogether. But I'll keep you posted on the progress of it, Jim.
Okay.
Davey, it's not going to be like a musical anymore. Like, there might be some songs, but it'll be like modern songs.
Okay.
You won't watch the Fred Astaire version, but maybe he'll watch mine. Although he's never watched anything I've ever done. Is that true, Davey?
Send me a copy, man.
Okay. Now, Jim, it's time for the big one that you've been waiting months for. This is the one that you wanted to remake way back in when we did the show on March 1st. And it's the movie that I thought should have won the Oscar for Best Director for director John Farrow, who's Mia's father, by the way. And it's a movie I actually think Davey would like a lot. Jim, you want to tell everybody what it is?
That would be Wake Island.
Wake Island, which is almost Dunkirk-esque in the sense that it is basically a little bit of setup, and then it's just action, very visceral war action. Impressive for 1942, which is why I feel like Farrow should have won the Oscar. He was nominated. But Jim really disliked this movie. Mainly, it sounded like for historical accuracy reasons.
It was a true-ish movie. There was so much propaganda layered on top of it.
You could also say that about almost every movie of 1942.
True, but I mean, this was especially so. And I mean, its purpose was to really rally the troops and get them out to fight. I think what I wanted to see was a little bit more even handling of the material, which is rich and awesome, and doesn't need the Alamo type finish that it had. Yeah, I was thinking about the Alamo too when I saw it. Davey, do you know the Battle of Wake Island historically?
No, I'm really not familiar with it.
It happened shortly after Pearl Harbor, and Wake Island is closer to Japan than Pearl Harbor, is it not? Don't they pass Wake Island on the way to Pearl Harbor? Isn't that the idea? Yes. According to the movie, and Jim says there's not entirely factual opposite, they basically held Wake Island for a lot longer than they could have. It's a small island, and with a small amount of troops, they held the island for a long time before they eventually had to succumb to the Japanese. Is that about right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's start with and I actually am forgetting now who played these roles in the movie, but Major Jeffrey Caton is the basic, the leader in the movie. He's the ranking officer on Wake Island at the time. And so, Jim, who do you have as Major Jeffrey Caton? So that was Brian Dunleavy who played that. I put in Luke Evans, in part because he looks a lot like Brian Dunleavy. You went young. I went super old. I did. Young on this. To be the ranking officer, because, I mean, he's like a man here, Dunleavy. Evans is a man, too, but he's like a younger man. He just played the Beast. Didn't he just play the Beast? No, he played that's Dan Stevens. Luke Evans I think he's got to be around 40 years old. Oh, I went closer to 80. That's really old. 70. Yeah. I'm looking for that leadership quality. So I actually went with Harrison Ford here because I'm looking for that person I'm going to follow into the breach, dear friends. The real person in real life was an 80-something, but I think Harrison Ford doesn't look 80. I mean, I think he looks younger than that. That was part of it. But I think the actual person was older than the way Dunleavy played it. I did consider Harrison Ford for one of the other roles. Okay, let's go now to Lieutenant Bruce Cameron. Who played this one, Jim?
I went with Dan Stevens, and he played the Beast. He's currently on the television show Legion.
Basically, are we doing the cast from Beauty and the Beast?
We are not. I actually didn't realize that until after the whole thing.
Can you describe the character to the audience just so we're on the same page here?
He's a pretty flyboy. I mean, that's the best way to describe him. He's like your all-American pilot.
So Dan Stevens, who's not that big age difference from Luke Evans.
No, but he fulfills the pretty boy role.
You know, I went a similar age thing, and also, you know, flyboy, I guess, is what I was thinking. I like to incorporate the actors we talk about a lot. We cast him last year in our recastings in Russians Are Coming, Russians Are Coming. I went with Oscar Isaac again for my flyboy role.
I mean, he already pretty much does that as Poe Dameron. So
that's sort of what I was thinking. Except this would give him a little more depth, a little something to chew on instead of that dumbness.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Private Joe Doyle, who was played in the movie by Robert Preston, who would go on to Music Man fame much later in his career. So a very young Robert Preston as Private Joe Doyle. Who do you got?
In the movie, Private Joe Doyle's primary role is to stand around shirtless and look pretty and be marginally tough at times.
But our job is to improve the movie, right? Like, isn't that the?
Yeah, and I think that I both cast this, and I think it's an actor who I think could stand to extend his range. I went with Zac Efron, who I think is often undervalued. I think he actually has a bit of range to him.
I agree completely about Zac Efron. If you remember, I cast him last year in one of the roles in something. I don't remember what it was. Maybe Around the World Under the Sea. I think Zac Efron has a lot of potential. But I went with Finn Wittrock here.
Fair. Totally fair.
Any thoughts, Davey?
No. This is riveting stuff, though, man.
All right, so Private Aloysius Russell, as played in the movie by William Bendix, who was Oscar nominated for his role in Best Supporting Actor. An early role for William Bendix. He's not as in shape as the Robert Preston character, and sort of like another New York kind of person, like lower class kind of figure. Is that fair, Jim?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
Who do you got?
This was a hard one for me because we don't really cast too many of these Palooka type roles anymore. There's not like a stable of these guys hanging around. The best options that you have somebody like Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn, who are too old for this role. Or if you go into what the more recent versions of, you have The Rock and Batista, and they're too old for this role. So I actually went to Jason Momoa, who I thought was both kind of younger, able to play funny. Not as old as you would think. Jason Momoa is like early 30s.
But he's so built. He's supposed to be out of shape, man.
Yeah, this is the problem. Find me an out of shape.
Okay, my actor, Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
Back me up on this, Davey.
All right. Yeah, Jesse Plemons.
I named Jesse Plemons Best Actor of 2016 for his work in Other People, and he definitely has the body type and the acting ability to do upper class or lower class. Like, he can do it all. You're not going to tell me that Jason Momoa is a better fit than Jesse Plemons. Like, I can't accept that. Jason Momoa is like a beast. Like, he's a monster, like in a good way. Like, you'd want his shirt off, not Zac Efron. Imagine him and Zac Efron together as like a comedy duo. Come on now, man.
When you have Jesse Plemons, I'm pretty sure Zac Efron could knock the shit out of Jesse Plemons.
And Robert Preston can knock the shit out of
not as Bendix. But
Bendix was like bigger, like out of shape guy. Like, he was not like Jason Momoa is like muscular Dave Bautista figure. Like, Jason Momoa is not a Palooka. I reject Jason Momoa.
I agree. And my point was, I don't think Hollywood really has a real Palooka stable anymore.
And I think Jesse Plemons has the ability to be that. Okay, so
to status down into Palookadom.
I do think he does.
What I need is Jon Favreau circa 1996.
Body type, Plemons is there. That leads us with our final character here, Shad McCluskey, who is a citizen in the movie, because one of the things about Wake Island is they had some citizens doing some construction work or something, was it, Jim?
Yeah.
This character was the lead of the citizens, and so he didn't have to answer to the military, so they had their sort of issues with the military ultimately until they had to work together to survive.
He was the easiest one to cast for me. I think you have the options here. In fact, you could slot in a whole bunch of actors, including Harrison Ford, which is where I would have put him. If you'd thrown me Harrison Ford, this is where I would have slotted him in.
Okay.
It's Bryan Cranston. Easy, okay. Bryan Cranston.
I went with John Goodman.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great choice. Thomas Jane I had on as an alternate.
Jane.
Yeah.
Like the hunks.
No palookas, lots of older hunks. That's Hollywood right now.
John Goodman is not a hunk.
John Goodman's a big guy. Like, he's big, old. He's exactly sort of the grizzled type of
every
senior.
man that Shaq Klosky kind of is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. David, do you want to see Wake Island now?
Yeah. No, it sounds. I like it's a good premise for a movie.
I agree with Jim. I think it would be a fun remake, and I still like my cast better. But, ladies and gentlemen, that has been our recasting segment. Moving on as quickly as possible to our final segment of the evening, which is a lot of your favorites segments, and it's my top 5. And I've got a very interesting top 5 here for you this evening. Top 5 films from female directors. So I think this will be really interesting and to hear what the guys have to say. This top 5 came in honor of our Indie Spotlight, which was a film Afternoon Delight from director Jill Soloway. Now, like the top 5 I did from directors who were stand-up comics, I opted not to repeat directors. So, one director in particular might have had multiple films on this list if I had. So I decided to, had the best film from 5 different female directors. But before I start the list, I do want to acknowledge the experimental film pioneer Maya Deren. It's hard to include her films on a list like this because they're mostly short films and they're not narrative in any way. They're more along the lines of Buñuel or some Eisenstein, very experimental. Maya Deren worked primarily in the 40s, directing and starring in her own evocative films like At Land and Meshes in the Afternoon. Not only is Maya an innovator in the use of symbolism and metaphor, and also the creative juxtaposition of images, she also advanced the art of black and white cinematography, especially impressive given that she worked completely independent of any Hollywood kind of studio. So I at least want to give a mention to Maya Deren historically and her importance. Now, in looking at the list, I thought it was interesting that most of these films, with the exception of perhaps number 2, don't necessarily feel like they have a noticeably feminine point of view. They're not necessarily about the female experience or feminism per se, which maybe is good that it didn't matter which gender directed it, or maybe it was necessary for these trailblazing women to make movies that didn't necessarily rock the boat too much. You be the judge, and we'll go on to the list now. Dave, are you ready?
You bet.
A lot of these movies you guys may not have heard of, because before there was Maya Deren, there was a woman by the name of Dorothy Arzner. Does that name mean anything to you guys?
No.
Dorothy Arzner is one of the most important women in film history. She was the only female to direct a film in the United States in the 1930s. The 30s. She was the first woman to join the DGA. Dorothy Arzner launched the careers of Katharine Hepburn, Rosalind Russell, and Lucille Ball, all of which were prominent in films from her 1942 in review. Dorothy Arzner invented the boom mic, for God's sakes. She's a true trailblazer, but she rarely gets talked about, and I'm going to change that right now. Her most famous film probably is a film called Dance Girl Dance from 1940, probably because it's her most feminist film, but it's not the one I like the best. The film I'm going to spotlight in my number 5 is her 1931 effort, Honor Among Lovers, with Claudette Colbert and Frederick March. I first saw it in 2003 during my first trip to Chicago and the Gene Siskel Film Center. Its plot could have been a tired romantic melodrama, but Arzner injects it with energy, intelligence, and depth. The complex love quadrangle in the film feels fresh because the characters seem much more real than most films of the period. The terrific actors, Colbert and March, are obviously a big part of that. Both of them also were factors in our 1942 films, by the way. But it was Arzner who allowed the actors the freedom to move within the space and create the characters with dimension. And Arzner has a background in editing, which must have helped because the film crackles with pace, something many films from the early 30s can't really say. Many films of the period use fast dialogue to keep things moving. Arzner uses her different shots to show us the actors. Now, Arzner was a lesbian, and her work frequently had lesbian subtext. Some reports suggest that she supposedly took it too far in 1943 on a film called First Comes Courage, which was the first to feature a kiss between actresses Merle Oberon and Isabel Elsom. Some say Arzner was fired and then Charles Vidor took over. Others say she had to bow out because of an attack of pleurisy. Either way, she is the credited director in the film, but the film features no kiss between women. And it would be her final film. She didn't direct after that. Just 2 months ago, Paramount Pictures renamed their dressing room area on the lot in Melrose Avenue after Dorothy Arzner. So attention is finally starting to be paid. And that's my number 5 film. Guys, anything?
That's really interesting.
Now I have another movie to add to my list.
Did I just teach the Jeopardy champ a few things?
I learn a couple new things every day. That's the best part about it.
Just a couple?
Just a couple.
Number 4, moving on right along. Now, we have talked about Czech films quite a bit on our show, particularly in our 1966 interview, in which we talked about both Milos Forman's film Loves of a Blonde and Jan Kodar's film The Shop on Main Street. But we have not talked about modern Czech filmmaker Alice Nellis, whose film Some Secrets I was lucky enough to see at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2003, and that is my number 4 film. It's the story of an extended family cross-country road trip to bury the ashes of their patriarch in his hometown that is no longer a part of their country, as their nation had recently literally split into two. Czechoslovakia became the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Now, the politics are only a backdrop for this journey of the family that is not just geographical, but mostly spiritual and emotional. Their assumptions about each other are challenged as they all try to figure out that delicate balance of progress and tradition, past and present. It's been a long time since I've seen the film. It's not readily available anymore, but I distinctly remember being blown away by the performances, led by my choice for Best Actress of 2003, Eva Jenzorova as the grandmother. The whole cast is good, though. It's a complex, flawed, three-dimensional people navigating familiar and familial situations in an uncertain political climate. Some Secrets is my number 4. Gentlemen.
I have not seen this movie either.
Nobody's seen this movie. It's a bit of a random thing. It's on my top 100 of all time. It struck me that much at that screening. Back when Tribeca was really showing some really special films. I had to be honest with myself and acknowledging it on this list. I think it's a great film. Okay, number 3, guys, is a film that you have heard of, because this is the only woman ever to win an Oscar for Best Director. It was my number 1 film of 2009, and the last time my number 1 film of the year ever matched the eventual Best Picture winner. Now, if I didn't insist on having 5 different directors, I would have to strongly consider both Zero Dark 30 and Strange Days for this list. But The Hurt Locker is, I think, the best film from director Catherine Bigelow. Now, Zero Dark 30, which we screened at the Oscar Movie Marathon this past year, has more scope and might be more important politically. But The Hurt Locker, to me, does a slightly better job balancing character and plot. And it doesn't hurt that Jeremy Renner, an actor no one knew before this film, gives an incredible performance of skilled bomb diffuser William James, who's as addicted to the danger of war as any drug or alcohol abuser. It's a surprising character study that managed to be simultaneously exciting and tense, better than most action movies can provide. Great action plus outstanding character development makes this one a favorite for me. Gentlemen, I assume you have seen The Hurt Locker.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great.
I really like The Hurt Locker. I think I would have flipped them. I think I preferred Zero Dark 30 a little bit more than The Hurt Locker. They're both great films.
And I mean, like, when you heard I was doing this, this is probably, this and Zero Dark 30 probably the first films that came to your mind. Everyone I talked to.
It was definitely, Bigelow was one of the directors that I immediately thought of when the category came up.
Are you surprised it's so low at 3?
No, I figure anywhere in that top 5 would be the right place for it.
Anything else on Hurt Locker, Davey, before I move on?
I'm going to rock everyone's world. I think Detroit is up there with those two. I think it's on the same level. Detroit
made my top 10 this year as well. Detroit had more flaws, but obviously I liked it very much. The number 10 film of 2017. Number 2 film is it's a top 50 all-time film for me, and it's one that Jim might know about, because do you guys remember the first show that I used to have on Channel 13?
Real Something.
The show was called Film Revision. It was built to promote Reel 13, which was their night of classic movies.
Yeah, I know a guy that was on that.
Both of you appeared on the show, because in the show we looked at films from 1983, and my number 1 film of 1983 was a very controversial film directed by a woman, and Jim was actually the guest on our discussion of that show. Jim, what was the film?
Oh, I have no idea, but I think I remember filming it. It was in the Producers Club.
Yes. So my number 1 film, I can't believe you don't remember the film that you reviewed for the show in 2008. So the film my number 1 film from 1983, and my number 2 film on female filmmakers list here is Yentl from director Barbra Streisand.
And now I do remember it.
It's one of my favorite films of all time. Davey, you've not seen it, so you can stop
squirming. I have seen it, by the way.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting. Well, every time I screen this film, I manage to surprise people. They're taken with its unexpected depth and top filmmaking, because a lot of people assume it's going to be a stupid musical. But Yentl is more than just a musical from Barbra Streisand. It's a film about feminism. It's a film about sexuality in all the forms that it takes. Yentl struggles with her burgeoning feelings for the other women in the story is one of the most daring and effective sequences of 1983. It's also a film about identity and self-worth, not just for women, for anyone denied fulfilling their potential. In that way, it's a very moving and effective personal journey. It's also innovative as a musical. Only one character sings in the movie, and she either does it in her head or when she's alone, almost akin to Shakespearean soliloquies. They're beautiful songs that offer rich insight into the very complex, confused character of Anshul/Yentl. It's a top 50 all-time film for me. The debate on the Film Revision show was very intense. Somebody threw something at me and said I was a moron and an idiot. So people are very passionate in their hatred of this movie, but I've also screened it several times, especially in Los Angeles, and people that love it are very passionate about the love it. It's very divisive. I think people just hate Barbra Streisand now, but I think the film as a work of art stands on its own. You said nice things about it on the show, but you're going to walk that back now, I imagine.
No. I look, I don't remember anybody calling you a moron or throwing things at you.
At the finale episode, not in the one you did, because after I named it the best film of the year, people got upset.
I don't think I have the relationship with the film that you do.
Very diplomatic.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good film. I definitely would prefer Hurt Locker or Zero Dark 30. I think I might just prefer that type of film, and I like musicals. It just didn't connect to me the way that I think it did for you. I thought it was a good movie. I don't know if I thought it was a great movie.
Well, it's an all-time favorite too. So it's beyond great for me. And Davey, you hate it with a passion, I have to think.
I don't remember it, but I don't remember not liking it either. I'll reserve judgment. I need to see it again.
There's no way you would ever watch a musical again.
You've really scarred me to the genre.
It was Hair that killed it, right? Hair was
not good, dude. Hair was a problem.
You didn't see we said a lot of negative things about Hair on the show.
Yeah, I don't like it. The 12 minutes or so that I watched.
So I don't think my love of Yentl is strange. I also think we have to give a lot of respect to Barbra Streisand, who was, faced a lot of critics when trying to attempt this movie. For 1983, she's one of a handful of women that are directing movies at this time. Even if you hate the movie, you have to respect what she's doing for women at this time. And I even said, this is the only film on the list that's anywhere near to being anything that's close to feminist. And so even the other filmmakers were not touching this kind of material. So I think it's important, from that point of view as well, regardless of how good it winds up being. My number one film is a little more recent, so maybe you guys have seen it, but probably not. And it was my number one film of 2005. And it's from a lesser-known director that just happens to be female. Her name is Nicole Kassell. And obviously it's ineligible for an official CMS because it's only 13 years old at this point. But I did screen it last year just for friends because it came up in conversation, and they were blown away by it. And they can't believe they had never heard of it before. It features Kevin Bacon in by far the best performance of his career as a convicted child molester trying to start his life over in a world that informs your neighbors about your past behavior. The film is called The Woodsman. Have you guys seen The Woodsman?
I haven't seen The Woodsman. As soon as you said it, I remembered that I want to see it.
Kevin Bacon's Walter character knows what he did was wrong, and he fights these urges that still haunt him. He wants so badly to do right while trying to understand why he feels the way he does. At one point, he befriends a young girl that seems to like him. And there's a bench scene in the movie, about midway through the movie, maybe 3/4 of the way through, in which he has the opportunity to give in to the desires that he clearly has for a child, a female child, 10, 11 years old. And his ability to show restraint is burned in my memory as one of the most heroic scenes in a film of the last 25 years, and a vivid reminder that the greatest enemy we will likely ever have to confront in our lives is indeed ourselves. It's another terrific character study, which makes for a powerful, thought-provoking film that tries to help you understand elements of a society that we cast aside with easy disgust. In that sense, it's an important film that shouldn't be forgotten as it is. Nicole Kassell now directs television, including several episodes of Bacon's now defunct show, The Following, but The Woodsman is a remarkable achievement that remains slightly ahead of Yentl on my top 50 of all time, even though it's as recent as it is. So, Davey, I assume you have also not seen The Woodsman.
I have not seen The Woodsman.
Had you heard of it?
I have heard of it, and I would like to see it.
Okay, well, maybe a second run, but you just don't do second runs, so it's probably not going to happen.
Probably not. Hope springs eternal, man.
I appreciate your honesty. Jim, do you have anything else you want to say about that top 5?
When you threw it out there, I was sort of expecting. expected Joan Campion to come up.
My favorite Jane Campion film was Holy Smoke, and I thought about that, but even ahead of Jane Campion, I'd have League of Their Own, which is my favorite Penny Marshall film. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of Penny Marshall, but yeah.
When I thought about Honor Among Lovers and Some Secrets, I mean, I just think they're stronger films, so I had to put them on there.
That's great. It makes me want to go and see them.
All right, guys, I'm going to wrap things up. It's been a long evening. So you guys ready to say goodnight?
Hi, guys.
Good night.
That wraps up our 48th series of episodes. You will see us again in July, Wednesday, July 11th, in which we're going to start our 49th series of episodes with the Marvel film Ant-Man and the Wasp. Stay tuned. In the meantime, subscribe to the channels. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook. Keep posted with everything we've got going on, and other screenings that we're doing and so forth and so on. So we look forward to seeing you guys in those formats and platforms. In the meantime, we'll see you in July, and this meeting of the No Name Cinema Society is adjourned.